to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Have a seat.
Thank you, Legislator Bailey.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. The Rules Committee will first meet to entertain the various contracts that have been presented to us. And once those contracts have been approved or disapproved, we move on to the other committees for their testimony for other issues which may turn up again in the Rules Committee. So after the contracts, we do recess to give the other committees an opportunity to address the items that are on their agenda. So we're going to begin with the contracts first, but I'm going to ask Mr. Pulitzer to please call the roll for the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Madam.
You're welcome.
Rules Committee. Legislator Stila Bino.
Here.
Ranking Member Kavan Abrahams.
Here.
Alternate Deputy Presiding Officer Howard Copel. Legislator Vincent Muscarella. Vice Chairman Richard Nicolello. Chairwoman Norma Gonzalez.
Present, thank you, Mr. Pulitzer.
We have a quorum, ma'am.
Okay. As I said,
Michael, you said Julia, right?
yes, he did. Okay, thank you. The first contract is contract A5117, a resolution authorizing the Director of Nassau County Office of Purchasing to award and execute a contract between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of various county agencies and Unitech Elevator, moved by Legislator Nicolello, seconded by Legislator Copel. Anyone here to speak on this item?
Good afternoon. This contract, Anthony Marino, Nassau County Department of Public Works. This contract is going to replace an existing contract for the maintenance of the elevators in county buildings.
Any questions for this item? Any public comment on this item? There being none, all those in favor of A51 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The item passes 4-3. The next item is A53, resolution authorizing the Director of Nassau County Office of Purchasing to award and execute a contract between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of the Nassau County Department of Public Works and L.I. Carolina, Inc., moved by Legislator Muscarella, seconded by Legislator Copel. Okay.
Good afternoon. Lieutenant Greg Stepanoff from the Police Department. Item A53 is to authorize and award a purchase order for the purchase of 3 rescue trucks. These trucks are going to be used by the Police Department's Emergency Service Unit. They're going to replace 2 2009 trucks, one with over 200,000 miles and one approaching 200,000 miles. We currently have 5 trucks. We're going to go to a 6th truck. The emergency service found that with 5 trucks, when some trucks are down, they go down for a while, and they had trouble keeping trucks on the street. We try and run with 2 to 3 trucks per tour. So we're going to replace 2 with the 3 that we're purchasing.
Any questions of the Lieutenant?
If I may.
Bernardini.
Lieutenant, just explain the function of the trucks again. I know you started to say that they were used in rescue situations. Can you just explain
This
the
is going to
function?
be...
Give us an example of when this truck would be used.
This truck is called to any heavy scene. It can be called to a Homeland Security incident. It could be called to any major incident, a hazardous material incident. They're hazardous material trained. They also work together with Bureau of Special Operations where if the Bureau of Special Operations is not available, they can come out and they can go to scenes. They have the heavy bulletproof vests that they can go into, heavier situations.
Okay, that's it.
They do everything. It's similar to emergency service in the city. That emergency service in the city do a little more than we do, but very similar. They run countywide. We try and run one truck north, one truck south in the county, and they'll go to any major scene. They'll go to and also major auto accidents where someone has to be extradited from the car. If they have the jaws of life, they carry. I'm probably missing a couple things, but I can go on and
I
on.
think you've given enough. And the trucks that are currently in operation, you said have in excess of 200,000.
There's one that's over 200,000, one approaching 200,000 that we're going to replace. They currently have 5 trucks, but with 5 trucks, believe it or not, they found it hard to keep 2 on the street. Like if it goes down, those big trucks go down sometimes. It takes a little bit more than a car to fix. So the 6th truck is going to make it easier for us to maintain 2 to 3 trucks on the street.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any
Nothing further.
other questions or comments from the legislators? Any comments from the public on this item? There being none, all those in favor of A53 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. The next item is A55, a resolution authorizing the Director of Nassau County Office of Purchasing to award and execute a contract between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of the Nassau County Fire Marshal and L.I. Carolina, Inc., moved by Legislator Nicolello, seconded by Legislator Bell. And we have
Good afternoon, members. Assistant Chief John Priest from the Nassau County Fire Marshal's Office. The item before you is to purchase a utility vehicle which will be used to transport equipment for hazardous material scenes. It is, believe me, actually more economic bill. We are replacing 2 old trailers which have to be towed by pickup trucks. So we'll be putting level A suits and decontamination supplies in one vehicle, get rid of the trailers, have one vehicle, one driver, and be able to get everything to the scene.
Legislator Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President Officer. Just a quick question. According to the backup, there was only 1 bid received. Why did the administration feel not to rebid?
Just a little louder, I'm sorry.
Oh,
sir.
I'm sorry, maybe I gotta bring this microphone.
It's okay.
According to our backup, it indicates that there was only 1 bid received. I'm just trying to find out why the administration chose not to rebid.
I do not know, sir. That legislator that would have gone through the Department of Public Works handled the bidding process for us. I know that Proliner is a very popular company on Long Island. They're big in fire service vehicles. I know that from my volunteer side. But I don't know.
There you go.
I've got help.
You guys are a relief.
I'll get out of the way.
There's someone here to
But
relieve you.
before you leave, 1 second, real quick, before you leave, before you begin, this contract is also 8 months late. Is it on the actual late list? I mean, Mr. Cleary can probably answer that.
I was unaware that it's late. I don't believe they've begun even making the vehicle.
Am I looking at the right one?
No,
No, we're doing it.
it's not on the late list.
It's not on the late list?
No?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at our backup wrong. Okay, it's for the next one. Sorry. It's okay. That's fine.
Michael Schwenoff, Director of Purchasing. Could you repeat the question?
It was the question about bids, Michael. According to the backup, only 1 was received.
Correct.
So we were asking, was there any reasoning or any thinking towards not rebidding to get more
We're
bids?
not rebidding.
Yeah, to get more bids.
The reason I would not rebid it is because there is only one major vendor on the island that can get us these type of vehicles, so it would be just throwing away money to rebid it.
And you feel that the price that we're paying ensures the fairest and best price that the county can get?
Yes, I do.
Okay, fair enough. Nothing further, Madam Clerk.
Any other comments from the legislators? Any other public comment on this item? There being none, all those in favor of A55 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. The next item is E, 232, of a personal services agreement between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of the Nassau County Department of Public Works and Saban Engineers, D.C. Moved by legislator Nicolello, seconded by legislator Acapel. Mr. Schneider.
Good afternoon, Brian Schneider from Public Works. This is an amendment to an existing on-call construction management and inspection agreement. This will not change the funding of the agreement, only to extend the expiration date for an additional 18 months to complete work that is currently ongoing. The department is in the process of bidding a new contract, but we are in the process of also negotiating and having discussions with CSEA to determine to what extent the department can subcontract this work going forward. So as of this time, until that is worked out, we are requesting that this contract be extended for 18 months to complete ongoing work.
Any comment from the legislators? Any public comment on this item?
Yes. And here's the slip for that.
It's on item E, 232. Correct?
Just a quick question, Mita Maraday, Baldwin resident. Just a quick question with regard to the outreach, because I believe I heard something about some discussion with regard to renewing the contract, and I'm just hoping that since this has been an existing relationship, that there is the proper oversight moving forward as it pertains to past performances in the overall procurement. So I'm just curious as to whether those measures have been put in place as far as the types of relationships, if any types of internal connections, again, so that the public has some assurances that moving forward that all of our safeguards are in place. Because from what I hear, this is the existing contract. So it really kind of precludes any type of fair competition towards this type of work if we don't have an opportunity for others to participate. Thank you.
Welcome. All right, any other comment? There being
I'm sorry, presiding officer, I have a question.
Legislator Bynum. Schneider?
Hi, Mr. Schneider.
Good afternoon.
Question is, this is late, this particular contract, and I guess the RFP was issued in 2013, and I guess the amendment to this contract is late, showing up here to the legislature late. Could you explain?
Robert Cleary, Director of Parent Compliance. There's a memo in the document. There's a memo in the document explaining the delay.
Okay, I'd like it on record if you could explain it.
You can read it.
It merely indicates, I'm just going to paraphrase here, that it basically states that we're requesting CSEA approval to bid a new contract. So it's not going to be a renewal of this one, it's going to be a new contract. So while this issue is being worked out, we need to extend the expiration date. So, granted there is some lateness, but this is an ongoing issue that we've been trying to work through with CSEA, so it's not something that's just been sitting on somebody's random desk. We are trying to get through this issue so that we can bid a new contract.
So they've been continuing to work
Yes,
as
correct.
you've been trying to deal with this issue with CSEA?
Correct, and we also have approval from the controller that this ongoing work associated with these contracts are acceptable to the controller to be paid as it's to allow for completion of assigned work prior to the expiration.
So were we under some belief that this was going to resolve much earlier on, and now you realize that you're at an impasse or something, and now you're coming for the extension? Because if you knew you were working out these issues earlier on, I'm not sure why you wouldn't have come to us back in April or what have you.
Well, we try to to address whatever, not controversies, but issues which could arise to the issuance of a new contract, which essentially this would be. But obviously CSEA had some issues on whether or not this work is being claimed for by DPW or if it can be subcontracted out. And this is an ongoing discussion that we've been having with CSEA over the last several months, and it just can't seem to resolve itself. So we feel it's necessary that, that these extensions, this is not the only on-call agreement that's going to require an extension. We have 5 other agreements besides the one with Savin Engineering.
All right, thank you.
Yes, and some of which have already been approved by the legislature.
Thank you.
There being no other questions or comments, all those in favor of E 232 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Nay. The item passes 4-3. The next item is E 233, the personal services agreement between the County of Nassau, acting on behalf of the Nassau County Department of Public Works and Marvel Light Company, Inc. Moved by Legislator Mascarello, second by Legislator Copel. And we have...
I just stood up here. Brian Schneider from Public Works. The purpose of this amendment is to extend the existing contract date through December 31st of this year, coming up in a couple weeks, for the upgrade of the county's traffic signal control system and the traffic management center in Westbury. This is the second amendment to this contract, but all the work has already been completed. There's no cost increase as part of this contract amendment, but this is really for payment purposes. So we need to extend the date until December 31st so that we can complete all the paperwork for the project and pay the vendor.
Legislator Capel.
Thank you. I understand that there were some issues with the, I'm sorry, get that. Is that better?
Yes.
I understand that there were some issues as to the performance rendered.
I cannot, there's nothing in my file that indicates anything about the performance. I know that there have been some delays due to some of the issues ongoing at the facility itself.
But none of those issues, as far as you know, are attributable to the contractor?
In my backup, there's nothing that has been indicated that there is an issue with the vendor itself. There have been a number of delays from equipment installation issues, integration issues, and final acceptance requirements.
The equipment and integration, all those were not the contractor responsibility?
Correct.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Legislator DeRicci.
Hi. Was there actually an original contract?
Yes, the original contract was awarded in February of 2008. There was a previous amendment authorizing the extension of the contract through December 31st of 2014.
Okay, and what was the original cost for that contract?
That's legislator, I do not have that in my package. I can find it out. All I know is that this extension is not for no additional funds. This is just an increase in time.
Okay, I mean, if you could just let us know what the
Sure.
So I mean, I'm fine, you know, to extend it. It's just a matter of
Sure.
how much it is. Thank you.
Any other comments from the legislators? Any public comments on this item? There being none, all those in favor of E 233 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Nay. The item passes 4-3. The next item is E 234 personal services agreement between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of the Nassau County Attorney's Office and Hopkins and Coppola. Moved by Legislator Nicolello, seconded by Legislator Capel. Okay.
Good afternoon, legislators. Deputy County Attorney Martha Kreisel. This is a personal services contract with Hopkins and Coppola as the outside counsel.
Okay, any comments or questions from the legislator? Minority Leader?
Thank you, Madam President. This is a question. From when the contract lapsed, because it goes back, well, far back, 13 months late, from the time the contracts lapsed, how much billing occurred from the time the contract lapsed to current today?
I can check on the amount of billing that occurred with regard to that, but I do have a note in my memo that there was no billings beyond the amount that NYFA permitted.
Less than 20,000. It's less than $20,000 total bill.
I will double check that for you, legislator. The information that I have focuses on the delay that we had in getting the documents back from the vendor. That's really what the focus was here.
Do you think you'll be able to get those
Yes.
information for us today?
Yeah, we got it.
You got it now?
No, we're going to get it right now.
Oh, okay. All right. So request the table, Madam Zones?
But it'll be quick.
Table by Minority Leader? Motion to table by Minority Leader, seconded by Legislator Albino. Aye, all those in favor of tabling E 234 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is tabled. Okay, the next item is B 235, a personal services agreement between the County of Nassau, acting on behalf of the Department of Information Technology and Sierra Cedar, Inc., moved by Legislator Mascarello, seconded by Legislator Capel. Okay, we have Commissioner Russell.
Good afternoon, Ed Eisenstein from the Information Technology Department. We're looking for an extension for about a year for our hosting vendor for the PeopleSoft product. That is who Sierra Cedar is.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Eisenstein? Any public comment on this particular item, 235? There being none, all those in favor of E 235 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The item passes 4 to 3.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
The next item is E 236, a personal services agreement between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of the Nassau County Department of Traffic and Parking Violations Agency and Zelda Jones. Moved by Legislator Nicolello, seconded by Legislator Capel. And who do we have?
Good afternoon, Dave Rich, Assistant Executive Director of Traffic and Parking.
John Marks, Executive Director of Traffic and Parking.
Just as a point, including this contract, there are 18 contracts for the additional hearing officers on the calendar for today.
Okay, I just called 236, all right? And the other item, I believe, is E 242, am I correct? A personal services agreement between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of the Nassau County Department of Health. John O'Brien.
Madam Chair, I believe he's referencing to the addendum that has, or
Okay.
the addendum and the tabled item.
I didn't think they were related at all. Okay, where's the addendum item? There's
I'm not
one
sure you
addendum.
can do that all at once.
I believe there is one addendum item.
And tabled, Madam Chair.
Hold on. I see the addendum. Now I have to suspend the rules. Okay, and I need a motion to suspend the rules moved by Legislator Capel, seconded by Legislator Nicolello. All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, now you would like me to call item E207, which is on the Which is, hold on, which is, I believe, a tabled item. Am I correct? Hold on.
Madam Chair, the 207 is on the addendum, Madam Chair.
I know it's on the agenda. Hold on.
It's up to you, Madam Chair, if you want to wait.
If they're all pertaining to TIPA, then we need a motion now to untable. This is what we're untabling. We're untabling E202, E203.
E021, 201, Madam Chair?
No, just go. Be patient, Mr. Becker.
Okay.
E204, E205, E206, E208, E209, E210, and I believe, hold on, there's one more. E211, E212, E214, E215, E223, E227, E229 and 227, E229, E230. Okay, a motion to
And Madam Chair, E201. Am I not correct, Ms. Hughes?
We're not calling it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
We didn't, okay. Now, the item that is on the addendum, which is E207, is also going to be untabled. All right?
I just want to confirm with you E201, Madam Chair. We don't want to call it, is that correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, are we ready? Are we ready for all of these items? First of all, I need a motion by Legislator Nicolello and second by Legislator Capello, and I think the motion is to untable all of those items that were just called. Hold on. So that was the motion that's before us, a motion to untable the items that were just called, and they were moved, the motion to untable was moved by Legislator Nicolello and seconded by Legislator Crump. All those in favor?
May I ask a question?
Sure, you may ask a question before we untable. Go.
Okay, go ahead and untable, sorry.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of untabling the items that were just called, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed to untable? All right, they are now untabled. Now let's go back. Oh. All right, I think we started out with 236, am I correct? And then we moved on to the other items, am I correct? And I need to read them into the record. Okay. E226, Personal Services Agreement. All right, remember I said Traffic and Parking Violations Agency and Zelda Jonas. And then, you want to talk about each one of them separately, or we're going to do it all together?
All the contract terms are all exactly the same. They are 3-year contracts with 2 one-year extensions.
Okay, so we're going to 202, E202, which is contract for personal services agreement with Salvatore Nicosia. All right, E203, which is a personal services contract with Edward A. Marin. E204, with Daniel Palmieri, 205, they're all personal services agreements, with Frank A. Gallardo Jr., E206, with Joseph C. Calabrese, 208, with Kenneth S. Diamond, 209 with Mitchell Studley, 210 with Anthony Berry, 211 Lawrence M. Schaefer, E212 with Claire Weinberg, E214 with Elizabeth Casala, E215 with Alan S. Mathis. That's it, I think. Am I correct? No, one more. E223 with Daniel J. Carter. And E229 with John P. O'Shea, and E230 with James J. Tinney. All right, now, they were all on tables, now, okay, are you ready? On all of these. Is it something which applies to each and every one of them?
Madam Chair, E207, Mr. Grella, also, I think
I
that's...
just called, I'm sorry, yes. E207, yes.
Mr. Grella.
Right.
Okay.
That was on the table as well.
Okay, good, thank you.
Go ahead. You said you could do a general.
Yes, this is 18 judicial hearing officers that are contracted with Traffic and Parking Violations Agency. They are 3-year contracts with 2 one-year extensions. As you know, it's mandated that we have judicial hearing officers for the agency to run.
Any questions on this particular personal services agreement? Zero by now.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. So I have pretty much a kind of obvious question. Some of these individuals' contracts haven't expired. Why are we here today asking for an extension or to renew these contracts?
We currently have 22 judicial hearing officers. Of the 18 that are presented today, 17 expired 12/31/17, and then one more, I believe, expires January 31st of 18.
So let's just talk about the one for January 2018. Why would you be here before this body today asking for an extension?
We're not asking for an extension.
Or asking for a renewed contract, whatever.
We're asking for a new contract for a 3-year term.
Why are you here today on a contract that does not expire for over a year, asking for this body to consider giving them a new contract?
Right, we start this process, we start this process in July.
I keep forgetting we're in 2017, I apologize. But why are we here, why are you here today in a bulk order like this for 3-year contracts? Is this customary? Were you getting 3 years in the previous contracts?
The previous contracts were 1 year with 1-year extension.
Okay, so then I think that would be more appropriate if you were going to come before this body asking for some continuity at TIFA, which I think is reasonable, but to come here today and ask for a 3-year contract on something that we customarily do a 1-year contract, I think is not really in good faith, and I think it's out of context for you to be here today asking for a 3-year contract.
The reason we are asking for the extended term is because there's 22 contracts that we appear in front of the ledge, and I believe there's about 5 or 6 agencies involved with the approval of the contract. So we're just trying to lighten the load for everyone involved with approving a contract. So we're not trying to do anything in bad faith.
Yeah, well, I don't think we need our load lifted to that degree in this fashion. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong that you be here today asking for 3-year contracts when we customarily give a 1-year contract on these type of arrangements. I think it's really wrong. So you have to really convince me it's not in bad faith. So Madam Presiding Officer, I think we should table these items and review them with different terms, because I believe that this is, it's not the appropriate action for this body. So I actually moved the table.
I'll second it.
In favor of tabling these items, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We move on.
So, I'm just gonna close by saying, we're talking about $90,000 per contract for 18 contracts per year for 3 years. This is a lot of money, this is a lot of taxpayer dollars, and I don't see why we would need to do this in such a rush today. I think that we should really take some time, look at the terms of these contracts, and this rules committee should have the opportunity to mull this over. I think pushing it forward to go to the full edge is the wrong move today. Madam Presiding Officer.
If I may, Madam.
But we voted on the table, and this is on the item.
This is on, yes, this is on the item. I just want to make sure I clarify a couple things, because I thought I heard it correctly, but I wasn't too sure. Most of the terms of these contracts expire on December 31st. Correct. Except for one that expires in January of 2018. Thank you, Judge.
That's correct.
Okay. And normally when, these are not new, we've done judicial hearing officers and tips of officials in the past. What are the normal terms we appoint in the past, over the last 4 or 8 years?
It's the same as these terms that are before you right now.
So we normally do 3-year terms?
No. The labor intensity of doing a contract each year is to try to save the county and everybody work that's not really essential at this time. The judges have a contract, they're extended, or they have to be approved each year, or are approved by the Chief Administrative Judge of Nassau County. So
let me make sure I understand. So in the past, when these gentlemen have come before us and ladies, they have been appointed to 3-year terms with this legislative body has, I'm sorry, 1-year term, which this legislative body has confirmed. And because now we realize at this juncture that that's become labor intensive, we want to go forward with 3 years. Why did you come to that conclusion now? How come you didn't come to that conclusion a year ago or 2 years ago? I mean, it seems like the labor intensive stuff would have existed for the last 8 to 10 years, I think. Go ahead, Frank.
Legislator, one of the things that we've been trying to do in the county executive's office is with the nonprofits and many of the social services contracts, as you realize they're like 1-year contracts. They all renew in January. And of course, when the nonprofits, and this is not a nonprofit, but it's a general philosophy we're trying to pursue with all department heads, where if it's possible, we're trying to do multi-year contracts so that our procurement office and myself, others, so that we're just going to head us off with this problem of constantly being late with contracts. So by having this in place, it was actually encouraged by myself and others for all of the department heads to try to do.
Let me
extend further some of these contracts.
No, Fran, I got you, but let me just explain to you a couple of different things. One, it comes off a bit disingenuous that you are doing this now. And just take a look at it from our perspective.
No, I do.
We are doing this, it's 11:57. Midnight's about to strike with a new administration that's coming in. And suddenly we have decided to go from 1 year to 3 years. Which it just looks like if you would have proposed this.
1 and 1, Legislator Abrahams, 1 and 1. It's 1 year with 1 year extension.
Oh, yeah, but you don't come back to this legislative body for that extension. It's 3, and it's 3. I think it's 3 years according to the backup, though, Fred.
Yeah, but
let me just make sure.
By just 1 year.
Right now it's
Right now it's 1 and 1, maybe, but maybe it's so. Let me just make sure I understand.
Go ahead.
So basically, we're shifting from a 1-year contract, which we have done now through the entire county executive McDaniels administration is two terms. We've always done 1 year. But now it just looks like we are making this change, which it just seems a bit disingenuous that we're deciding to make this change today. And as I use the analogy, it's 11:57, administrations are about to change. I mean, we would have no problem supporting these gentlemen or these ladies for one term, 1 year, but to do it for 3 years just seems like, holy cow. I mean, I just can't believe for the life of me that suddenly we realized in the 8th year of the current county executive's term that it's too labor intensive, and because of the contracts and them being renewed and timeliness, that suddenly we realize in the 8th year of his term that it's too labor intensive. It just seems like it's way too disingenuous. I mean, and then on one step, and to go 3 years just seems to be, I mean, just calling for what it is. It does not sit well with our side. Now, I understand how this vote is going to go, but I'm just saying, we have to make our objection very well known that this is the same exact politics that people are tired of. I mean, not for nothing, we got a whole bunch of commissioner appointments, which we're going to consider each one individually, because obviously we do not want to see any key people that could be vital to the next administration not be considered. But this is a change. I mean, it's one thing when you got the Human Rights Commission and you got some other boards, Planning Commission that are coming before us later on today. That's existing. We understand those terms, those periods, they're existing. But this is a change in how you're proceeding.
Okay, I can very well appreciate what you're saying, looking at it from your perspective. I want to tell you but I want to assure you that that's not the case. The intent here was just to is very, very sincere, to try to be in a situation where contracts are not late and things that are more on the minor side, as these are in a sense, like our nonprofits and other contracts. We were just trying to find ways to extend some of the contracts. You're going to find this even in our nonprofit situations. We're trying to do the same thing. So I just want to assure you that this didn't come from anybody else. This came from us in the contract writings and people in the Legislative Affairs Office trying to extend contracts so that they won't be late and that there's a little bit more stability in what we're trying to do. But I completely understand what you're saying, and it doesn't, the appearance of it, but I assure you that's not the case. And
would you support changing these agreements to 1 year?
Whatever this body decides to do, we have no difficulty with that. Of course, if they want to, if this body decides they want to continue the agreements at 1 year at a time, we have no trouble with that at all.
Madam Presiding Officer, would you respectfully request that we change these agreements to 1 year? Would you be accepting of that? We can make an amendment.
You guys have no trouble with that, right?
The judge has no, Madam Chair, the judge has no problem with it at all.
I'm sorry, the judge has no, problem with that at all either. I mean, as I said, this was, an initiative on our part to make things flow a little quicker, but if this body decides they want to make them 1 year, the judge said he has no problem.
Well, since the judge has no problem, and Mr. Becker, Fran, I appreciate you saying that on the record, let's make them 1 year.
I have a question for you, Fran, or Judge Marks, or Mr. Rich.
Okay.
The 1 year contracts currently, so there's also an extension that goes with that.
That's correct.
So do they come back to us on the extension or no?
Yes, they do.
So it's like the option of either party?
Yes. And they're also approved by the administrative judge of Nassau County.
All right. And you have no problem with going to a 1 year contract?
No.
Okay. I mean, I have no problem either way. I'm looking at this list, it's Republicans, it's Democrats, it's retired judges, and they're all highly qualified. So whatever way you want to do it is fine.
Well, let me ask that.
Can you get us a 1 year amendment to 1 year contracts by by 2 weeks from now?
To be perfectly honest, I can't. We will do our best to do it. The problem we have when we submit something is the different layers it goes through to get to this point. We thought this was done, we were talking about the 1157. Well, I think several months ago there were proposals and it was tabled for some reason. I don't know why, it's the same judge. But we will do everything in our power to make it a 1 year
I mean, it is December 4th, and obviously the administration is on its way out, but when did this process start with these administrative judges? When did the discussions with the contract start?
We started doing this paperwork in July.
July?
What does it take to make?
Let me just consult with Martha just a moment. 18 minutes.
To save some of this.
Come on.
I understand. Can we do? Madam Chair, Legislator Nicolello, they don't have to go through the approval process. We can do it very, very quickly. It could be ready at the next session. There's no trouble with that at all.
Okay, we're going to be meeting on the 18th, and there will be a special rules committee at that particular time.
Okay.
So hopefully you'll be ready, and now I'm going to ask for a motion to table the items that...
We'll get it done.
To table the items that were called so that they can be amended. All right, moved by legislator Nicolello, second by legislator Cabral. All those in favor of tabling, there we go, E236.
We'll get it done.
Hold on, I'm going to do it properly. E202, E203, E204, E205, E206, E207, E208, E209, E210, E211, E212, E214, E215, E219, E223, and E230. Moved by legislator Nicolello, second by legislator Cabral. All those in favor of tabling those items that were just called signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, tabled unanimously, I would assume. All right. That motion carried all of the items that I just called. And all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. The items from E236 to the addendum item, which is E207, have been tabled. All right. Okay, so you...
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll get it done.
The last time is on the 18th when we will be calling another...
And we'll be here.
Okay.
And we'll get it done, okay?
Okay, hopefully. Thank you.
It will be done.
All right, okay, you say so.
Okay, so all those items will now go back to
The next item is E237, Personal Services Agreement between the County of Nassau, acting on behalf of the Nassau County Police Department and Long Island Equine Medical Center, PC, moved by legislator Mascarella, second by legislator Cabral, and we have the lieutenant.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Greg Stefanoff from the police.
And
Item E237 of 17 is to increase the contractual encumbrance and extend the contract for the veterinary services for the Nassau Police Department mounted unit. This includes routine emergency medical and emergency medical veterinary services for its police horses. We're going to put $17,500 on the encumbrance for it.
Any questions of the lieutenant on this item? Any public comment on this item, E237? There being none, all those in favor of E237 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay. We all like horses, okay.
Thank you.
All right, don't go away because you have E238, another personal services agreement between the County of Nassau, acting on behalf of the Nassau County Police Department and Euro Lloyd Travel LLC. Moved by legislator Nicolello, seconded by legislator Cabral, and it's yours, Lieutenant.
Good afternoon. E238 of 17 is a contract with Euro Lloyd Travel Group. This travel services is used for our extraditions It includes the members' travel, and also we're picking up the person we're picking up also, that's possibly out on a warrant. We booked the travel services for them on this as well. We're putting $20,000 on this. We're doing a one-year extension. We're going to be putting, this is the last year, and we're going to be putting an RFP out for a new contract after this.
Any questions of Lieutenant on this item? Who has it? Somebody raise their hand?
Celia?
Legislative, would you with?
Why is it, would it be the last year you're putting the RFP out?
Well, because we've had this for a number of years, and after this, we'll put an RFP out.
Oh, okay, this is last year before you
We've been using this for a couple of years already.
another one, okay. All right, thank you.
Minority Leader.
So, Lieutenant, I'm just looking at the backup. It references that the term was extended in August 20 to 2017, but we don't have any record of that extension coming to the legislature. We have the original contract, which was between August 21, 2013 to August 20, 2016. But we don't have, and then it references that there was an extension of a term in August of 2017. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. There's an amendment one that extended to August, I'm sorry.
Of 17.
Let me apologize.
Okay.
So we had the original contract from August 2013 to August 2016, and then it references that there was an amendment that took us from 16 to 17, but we don't have any record of that vote taking place. And now we're considering one that takes us from August 17 to August 2018. We're just trying to find the amendment that extended us from 16 to 17. We don't have any record of that, correct? We just wanted to know that the vote went through in the motion.
Yeah, in the packet I have the item that extended it to August 17. I'm trying to see how to reference it for you.
That's our council.
No, I mean, it went through the controller's office because it extended and it wouldn't go without the ledge. Like, in other words, it proceeded after that it would need to go to this body to go to the controller's office. But then we also got a certified copy back to our office from the clerk of the ledge.
So you're saying they did go through, we just don't know what the actual...
Yeah, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to, for the past year, from 16 to 17, we wouldn't have been able to operate under the contract.
The only thing I would say, I mean, our council didn't find anything in our history going back to the last year of that vote taking place. That's the only reason why we brought that up.
No, it's a good question.
We didn't see anything with Euro Lloyd Travel Group going back to August, or even before that.
I mean, if you wish, I could send you, like, the back in my office, I have the certified copy.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Any other comments from the legislature? Any comment from the public on this item? There being none, all those in favor of E 238 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Nay. 4, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Let's move on. The next item is E 239, personal services agreement between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of the Nassau County Department of Public Works and Lero Program and Construction Management PC, moved by legislator Muscarella, seconded by legislator Capel. Who do we have?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Robert Laval, architect from DPW. This agreement is for a term extension of an existing contract. There is no additional funds required at this time on this contract. It will permit the consultant to continue to perform construction management services for the Family and Matrimonial Court project through the completion of Phase 1.
Okay. Any questions from the legislators? Legislator Reggie Whitten.
Hold on a second.
Okay, I'll hold on.
I don't think I have to
Sorry.
Can I just ask the gentleman from the procurement office just to come up? There he is, Mr. Cleary. Thank you. I don't know if that's us. Hi, I'm not sure if this is just my notes or if it's the actual backup, but in our notes it says that for the 5 political contributions that the contributed name and the amount and the contributions are not indicated. Is that what you're seeing in your backup too? Like they have the 5 groups that were donated to, but they don't have the amount nor the person who contributed.
Well, we have a political campaign contribution form dated 9/22/17 indicating that contributions were made to Friends of Ed Mangato, Friends of Roma Gonzalez, Yavoli 2017, Labriello for Comptroller, and Martin for Nassau.
Right, and isn't it your understanding that we request the amount?
No. Not
So
for
it's
this
just that the contributions were made without the amount
Yes,
is all
yeah.
that's required?
I mean, the information is publicly available.
No, I know,
once it's
I know.
recorded, so.
I thought that we had requested the amount, because usually we see the amount.
Not on the form itself.
Okay, well,
Some people do include it.
why wouldn't we include it?
Well, again, it's publicly available
I
information.
know, but wouldn't it kind of be a good idea to know if it was a major amount, or, I don't know.
I think this one's written into law. If the legislature wants to change the form, that
Maybe
would
we
be
should
fine.
think about that. All right, thank you for your time.
Any other question or comment from the legislators? Any public comment on B 239? There being none, all those in favor of B 239 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, the item passes 4-3. The next item is E 240, a personal services agreement. Yes, on behalf of the Nassau County Department of Health, Charles J. Casolaro, Esquire. E 241, personal services agreement between the Nassau County Department of Health and Eric S. Zayden, Esquire. And E 242, personal services agreement on behalf of the Nassau County Department of Health and John J. O'Grady. Moved by legislator Nicolau, seconded by legislator Capel. Okay, here we go.
Yes, hi, Gerard Giuliano, Nassau County Department of Health, here to speak on all 3 items. These are administrative law judges that work with the Department of Health. It is their job to enforce the public health laws of New York State, the Nassau County Public Health Ordinance, and your local laws. These are the judges that enforce the food service establishment regulations, laws over pools and camps, lead poisoning in children, rabies, Clean Indoor Air Act, smoking, e-cigarettes, to name a few, body piercing, tattooing. They cover all of these laws. They enforce them on behalf of this legislature and various state laws. This procured through the RFP process, request for proposals. There are 3 judges here before you today. 2 of them are 2 of the contracts are retroactive. For Charles Casolaro, no work has commenced with him. For the other 2, they do date back to work that was done in 2016. The reason for that is the Nassau County Department of Health was approached in 2016. We had already started the process to renew the contracts, but we were approached by the state. We have a delegation, a special delegation from the state, which helps protect our groundwater from their, under the petroleum bulk storage program. That is run under the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. That is an area that is entirely preempted by the state. We can't do it without that special delegation. They approached us and they asked us to go forward and pick up some work that we had not done previously with respect to the fire marshal gasoline tanks. To do so, we had to rewrite our regulations. At the very same time, there was passage of the Federal Energy Act that required a rewrite of the state petroleum bulk storage regulations, and we had to wait for that to happen for us to then rewrite our local petroleum bulk storage regulations to conform with the states. That took way longer than anyone at the state, than anyone here at Nassau County thought that would take. Although we started the process in 2016, those regulations did not get rewritten until 2017, and we finally got our delegation in the middle of 2017. At that time, the delegation they gave to us was a 3-year delegation, and we moved to bring the judges on so that would mimic that same or similar 3-year term. And so we are here before you today with proposing these contracts for these 3 judges. 3 judges had responded to the request for proposals, so it went out to an advertisement to Nassau County, Suffolk County, and over 100 legal vendors.
Minority Leader?
Good afternoon.
Yep.
I appreciate your explanation in regards to, obviously all these are late, but the 2 that really caught my eye were the ones that go retro back to July 1, 2016.
Yes. And so although...
If I can finish, just give me 1 second. So if I understand your point correctly, work has not started for either one of these 2 contracts.
The work has not started for the contract for Mr. Charles Casolaro. For the other 2, Judge Eric Zadins and Judge John O'Grady, they have been working through without the contract. They felt that work was too important in terms of enforcing the vital work that the health department does in enforcing your laws and in protection of the public health. So they decided to work through while we went through this process with the DEC to try to get the petroleum bulk storage delegation redelegated down to the health department with the changes that include picking up the fire marshal's work that they used to do with the gasoline tanks, which is what necessitated us to need for a need to have a 3rd judge.
Not to cut you off, and,
yes.
and I'm not dismissing what you just said, but let me just make sure I understand this correctly. So from July 2016 to where we are now, December 2017, the administration has been administering a contract, has been paying a contract.
Oh, no. They have not been paid 1 penny for this work.
So these gentlemen have been working for 18 months without being paid?
At risk, yes.
So you've been administering a contract. So now, in December of 2017, we're just a formality to make sure these people get paid.
No, I don't think that at all. We did start a contract in 2016. We pulled it back as a result of what came down from the DEC. That didn't come down, so we started this process when we knew the delegation was coming down to us, and that wasn't until April of 2017, which is when we reissued for the contracts for the 3rd. In retrospect, I should have just let the 2016 contracts go, but we didn't realize, the state didn't realize it was going to take us such a long time to rewrite their regs and then get them published and approved by the state.
If you were sitting where I'm sitting, would you vote for these contracts today?
No, I absolutely would. They've been doing...
Considering that they're 18 months past their time.
Right, well, and given the explanation of that, we got tied up with the state.
Let me ask you, do you normally support people that do work 18 months in advance and it doesn't get any legislative approval?
I think that they know that they're acting at their own risk, but it was the important work that they do that's vital to the department and vital to the residents that they felt the need to just continue.
And if this contract was to fail in rules today, they would be perfectly fine with the work they've put forward without being paid?
I think they understand the nature of what they're doing, and they understand the nature of what's going on here in terms of their work and the work of this legislature.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay, any other comments from the legislators? Any public comment on these items? There being none, all those in favor of E240, E241, and E242 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Aye, the items pass 4-3. Now, before we recess rules, I want to make sure that item E236 was included in the table items. So rather than run the risk of it not being, I'm going to ask that item E236 be tabled. All right? Moved by legislator Nicolello, second by legislator Capel. All those in favor of tabling E236 signify by saying aye.
I'm terribly sorry, Madam Chair. We can untable the one county attorney contract. I do have the information that Legislator Abram.
Hold on. You have to tell me.
It is E23417, where the minority leader had asked for the dollar amount.
Let me make sure that the record has E236 tabled. All right, so there is a motion made by Legislator Nicolello, second by Legislator Capel. All those in favor of tabling E236 signify by saying aye. Okay, it is now. Any opposed? All right, it is tabled. Now, Martha, go ahead.
And I apologize for the interruption.
It is
So we've confirmed that $18,000 has been billed under that contract, and that was the question that Legislator Abram had asked us about.
18,000 billed total?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Frank. 18,000 billed total?
Yes, that's correct, Christie. 18,000 total billed, yes.
Okay. We need a motion to untable E234. Moved by Legislator Mascarello, second by Legislator Nicolello. All those in favor of untabling E234 signify by saying aye. And any opposed? Okay, now, do you have anything further to add?
No.
Okay, all right. Then go back. All those in favor of E234 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, the item passes 4-3. All right, now the Rules Committee is now recessed. The next committee is Public Safety.
Just this one.
Yeah, but I don't think it was mostly contracts. I think it was.
I have like no contract.
No, it's not contract. Yeah, I don't think it's contracts. So if I could talk to you, I can bring it. Yeah, that's good. Nikki actually. Yeah. She sent me videos where it came out blurry because I have the same sort of she's on my phone. So she can tell me. Now it's out. I have a couple of reviews and 3 different networks for shows, so fingers crossed. And we one of them myself. So one of them, so Oxygen wants to do a show that would kind of like American News World. So they really want something more like a great background. So that was kind of like a far stretch, but it'd be cool because I'd co-host the show, we didn't interview families about crimes and stuff, and I kind of go through the investigation. And we want to do a show called Courtrooms, and so I get to host that. Yeah, like that would really be ideal for me to watch doing like front row. Nothing to scary, nothing to on TV. And they want to do kind of like, I think it might be useful for TV because they want a panel of 4 people to discuss like celebrity gossip and celebrity divorces, and they want specifically divorce attorney. But I mean, it doesn't really matter if you talk about divorces, divorce attorney. Amy would be my top favorite. Oh my
Listen. These days, it's just remember.
I would ask the members of the Public Safety Committee to please take their seats.
What are we doing next?
Taking their seat.
Bye-bye.
Hi, how are you? Yeah, it's been a long time.
What are we doing next? Finance?
I saw her out there.
Yep, I'm ready. You wait for me.
We're going to call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Safety Committee, Legislator Sheila Bino.
Here.
Minority Leader Kavan Abraham.
Here.
Ranking Member Laura Curran.
Here.
Thank you. Legislator Denise Ford.
Here.
Legislator Vincent Muscarella. Legislator Laura Schaefer. And Chairman Steve Rhodes.
Present.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. First item we have on the agenda is clerk item number 448 of 17. It is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an amendment to a grant agreement between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of the District Attorney's Office and the Women's Opportunity Rehabilitation Center Incorporated. Do we have a motion? So moved by Legislator Schaefer. Second by Legislator Ford. Do we have someone here from the District Attorney's Office?
Yes, sir. Bob McManus, District Attorney's Office.
Thank you, Mr. McManus.
This is a one-year extension of an agreement between the District Attorney's Office and Women's Opportunity Rehabilitation Center, a not-for-profit corporation located in Hempstead. The District Attorney's Office has a long-standing partnership with WORC. They provide counseling and employment assistance to women referred by the courts as a diversion to incarceration, as well as serving the needs of women who have been released from jail or prison. The goal of the program is to reduce the likelihood that the clients will return to criminal activity. This contract is funded by New York State forfeiture funds awarded to the district attorney as a result of our participation in criminal investigations.
Thank you, Mr. McManus. Do we have any questions from the legislators? Legislator Ford.
Good afternoon. It sounds like an absolutely wonderful program.
And I just am curious, what is the success rate for, when dealing with these women? Do you find that it's been proven very effective?
I know it's a very effective organization that has achieved excellent results. I don't have any statistics with me right now, but I know that the courts, in regards to the court system, WORC is considered a valuable resource.
So they would actually go there. Does this have any involvement, like I know there are like basically what you call halfway houses, that women who leave, incarceration, that they go to some of these places in order to stay there until they acclimate themselves back into society? Does this also help these women find that type of housing, or?
It does not help them find housing in what you refer to as halfway houses, but it does provide services to people who are living in that environment temporarily.
So if you live there, then you can end up sign up and you could go there and help them get jobs and any type of assistance that they may need.
And that's correct, and also help you prepare for prepare resumes, prepare interviews and things like that.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Legislator Kern.
Hi.
Hi.
I will add, I have visited this program, and they do a lot with the $75,000. They get a lot of volunteers to help the women. They have a little teeny tiny shoebox office, and it's very, very impressive. It's sort of an unsung hero in the diversion world. And I'm really happy to see that we will be voting on this today.
They have recently moved actually to quarters that are just a little bit bigger.
That's good to hear.
Any other questions or comments from the legislators? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of clerk item number 448-17, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And the resolution is referred to finance.
Thank you.
Next up is clerk item 458-17. It's an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the police department. Do we have anyone here from the police department? Actually, first I should ask for a motion. Motion by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Ford.
Good afternoon. Lieutenant Greg Stefanoff. Item 458-17 is a supplemental to the annual appropriation for the police department. This is to appropriate $500,000 from asset forfeiture to actually accommodate the next item, 459, which I have Commissioner Ryder and Assistant Commissioner Fox here to speak upon.
If there's no objection, perhaps we should call 459 then at the same time. 459 is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute a cooperative agreement and license with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation in relation to a new environmental education and resiliency center. Do we have a motion for 459? Motion by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Ford. So both items are on the table. Commissioner Ryder.
Good afternoon, and thank you. Is this on? Yep. Good afternoon, thank you for taking the time. The item that 459-17 is to build for the state of New York is building their building in the Hempstead State Lake Park. We're going to be partners in there as taking up over 1,000 square feet for our Explorers program. We currently do not have a location where the Explorers use. They bounce around from building to building depending on what event they're doing and what type of training. The idea of us getting into that building was not only for finding space for them, but was also that we're involved in the programs with the governor's office. Those programs on weekends include fishing and hiking and the kayaking. All of those are in the current agreement that we have with them. Those programs will allow our explorers to teach our young kids from the neighborhoods of Hempstead and Uniondale and West Hempstead and pull them into the park, create these programs on the weekends, and our explorers will be involved, and I used to love using the word, but that free labor from the explorers, but it's also an education to then educate our young that maybe they want to, as the future grows, join into the Explorer program. But it's really about the youth in the neighborhood. It's about getting them involved into some of the programs that the park now has, but will be enhanced once they go through the whole recovery process
and building of this building. No monies will be passed hands until we take residence. And if they do not complete the building, we do not have to put forward any of our monies.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Sounds like a worthwhile program. Any questions or comments from the legislators? Legislator Schaefer?
Thank you. Commissioner Ryder, how are
Yes.
you? So the building is being built by the state, you're saying? And the explorers are going to be inhabiting a portion of it. What's the program, what's the group of the state that's going to be there?
So this is under the New York State Storm Recovery Program. It's an educational building for the neighborhood, for the park. But we will occupy that area of 1,000 square feet in the bottom.
And in total, how big is the building? About 8,000 square feet, is that right?
It's about 6,000 square feet.
6,000, okay. Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Legislator Bynum.
Hello, Commissioner.
Good afternoon.
So I actually am a fan of this project. I've been meeting with the folks out of the governor's office monthly at a minimum. And I like what they're going to be doing in the park overall. And I also like that you'll take residency there. They're going to open up the park at different access and egress areas so the community can just come right into the park and be able to engage with the explorers, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. I would look forward to see what kind of scheduling of events and programming that you'll provide there. I think it's something that will be beneficial to those that live locally and those that can travel and get there. So I think we should support this. I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comment? Legislator Carter.
Thank you. So when it comes to the funding, there is $500,000 in asset forfeiture from us, and is there's state funding as well?
That's correct. The rest of the construction of the building is paid for by the state of New York.
Okay. All right, I have to think this would have an ancillary safety benefit to the park as well, just by the fact of it's being there.
100%. So the idea of, every time our explorers are out there, our law enforcement are from the community affairs. So as they're walking through in their uniform presence, along with our uniformed officers, it does give an enhanced security to the location. They're also building a soccer field in the area that will also be available to the Explorer program.
Right. Well, I know the theme in the Nassau County Police Department is building trust between police and the communities, and this seems like one step in that endeavor.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the legislators? Any public comment? Ms. Maraday, welcome.
Welcome, or I should say welcome back, but thank you. Being a Maraday Baldwin resident, and I would like to say that I do support and approve of this project. Okay. It's December, it's my birth month, so take your presents while they come. How's it my time? I haven't even started yet. Okay. That's my signal. I think this is definitely important, and for those residents who are on the South Shore, it really is about time, as I know Legislator Rhodes can attest to that, as well as Legislator Curran, because we do need to have these types of activities in these communities. It's been kind of difficult for many of our residents, as well as our young people, to get to the various activities that seem to be taking place in such a preponderance at Bethpage. And again, those parks or facilities that were kind of north of or along the 495 corridor. So we definitely support that. We are very encouraged by the activities of the Explorer program and the Explorers in terms of the things that they've done in our communities, in terms of going around and handing out flyers and public safety information. And we do look forward to working with the Commissioner on this, particularly with regard to storm resiliency, because we definitely need that. And hopefully this will be a prototype model that we can establish at other parks that make it convenient for residents and young people to participate. And we really do need to have some ongoing training and support for storm resiliency, because we're in a very vulnerable location. So I am in support of this. Record this. You may not get it again, and we'll just see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Maraday. I am honored that I was chairing the meeting where you supported. Is there any further public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of, and if there's no objection, we'll vote on these together.
All those in favor of items 458 and 459 of 17, please signify so by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. Both items are agreed to and referred to Finance. There being no further business before the committee, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Legislator Ford, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. All those in favor, please signify so by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. We stand adjourned. Thank you. Who's up next?
Thank you.
Public Works is next. Okay, Public Works and Parks Committee is hereby called to order. I am here, Vice Chairman Steve Rhodes. Sitting in for Donald McKenzie is Rosemary Walker. Here. Mr. Gaylord. Ranking Member Ellen Birnbaum. Here. Laura Curran. Here. And Arnold Drucker. Here. We have a quorum. We have one item on the addendum, so I would move for a suspension of the rules. Mr. Rhodes moves. Ms. Curran seconds. We have before all in favor of suspending the rules. Aye. The rules are suspended. We have one item on the addendum, 479 of 17, which is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an administrative consent agreement and cooperation agreement with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation in relation to the Bay Park diversion project and additional work. Moved by Ms. Walker, seconded by, I will second that item. The item is now before us. Can we have someone from the administration, since this came down to us very late, come and explain this item to us? Name and address for the record, though, David.
Jane Hodak, counsels the Nassau County Department of Public Works.
Okay, do we have, why don't you give us a general overview of what this is?
Sure. The western bays of Nassau County have failed to meet New York State water quality standards. The major causal factor of the failure is excessive nitrogen in the water bodies. The major discharger of nitrogen to these water bodies is the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant. So accordingly, under New York State law as well as federal law, the county is obligated to reduce the amount of nitrogen that comes out of the Bay Park plant. We've been studying this issue and working with the state for a long time to address this. And through this agreement, the state has agreed to work with us to hasten the water quality improvements. Through their design build authority, they will take on the construction and the management of construction of the diversion from the Bay Park plant to the Cedar Creek plant through the existing conduit under Sunrise Highway. And so this will mean that we reap the water quality benefits much more quickly than we would have were we to do the construction. These contracts will all still go to public bidding. There will still be the normal processes by which you seek to have a competitive process and receive the lowest responsible bid. But the state has certain abilities under state law that will make the project work more quickly. In addition to the nitrogen aspect of the agreement, it also covers the ongoing work at Bay Park in response to the damage caused by Superstorm Sandy. And there's also a component in which we are to work with Long Beach to develop an agreement by which they will divert their sewage to the Bay Park plant. They have already signed an agreement with the state to do so, and we will work with them to develop that agreement by which we are able to then take on that sewage as well.
Mr. Rhodes, I understand you have some questions on this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One point first. I know, and the devil is somewhat in the details on this. The effluent from the Bay Park Sewer Treatment Plant is not being diverted to the Cedar Creek plant. It is being diverted to the Cedar Creek outfall pipe, correct?
That's correct.
So none of the treated effluent will actually be processed. First off, all the effluent is going to be treated.
The effluent at Bay Park will be treated, and there will be nitrogen removed at the Bay Park facility. There's an existing component within the agreement that the engineers can describe a lot better than I regarding the treatment at the plant. What this will do will then take that treated effluent and, as you correctly pointed out, connect it up to the outfall that discharges to the ocean from the Cedar Creek plant.
So none of the effluent will actually reach the Cedar Creek plant itself?
Correct.
It will simply be diverted to the outfall pipe. And the reason that I make that point is that there's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there, and which leads to my next point. I have had several conversations with the administration about when the appropriate time is for us to have public meetings with respect to what we anticipate the plan is going to be. I think it's absolutely essential that there be community meetings and public meetings, particularly in my district, since we're going to be the ones accepting, theoretically, through our neighborhoods, all of the treated effluent now for virtually the entirety of Nassau County through our district. I have been told that the appropriate time for those meetings would be upon completion of the design phase, when we're able to lay out for the community where exactly these pipes would go, where the connection points would be in order to connect with the aqueduct, the conduit underneath Sunrise Highway, what would specifically be involved in the project. The assurance that I've also been given is that before a final step is taken and before we commit ourselves to the project, that we would have those community meetings and get that community input. The proposal that's before us today seems an awful lot like it's a commitment. Can you explain for us what additional authority does the legislature have prior to finalization of this project to be able to get the community's input in a time where we can still reverse course if we need to? And again, understand, I'm supportive of the project, but I want to make sure before we take the final step that there's community input.
I think
if we approve this today, do we still have that ability?
The state has made a commitment through its design process to keep the communities abreast. I mean, the state has done many community outreaches through other Superstorm Sandy recovery processes that it has undertaken. And I think it views this in the same line, that it's going to be reaching out to the community and having those public forums at which people will be apprised of the plan and what will go forward.
Well, there's a difference between advising the community of the plan and giving the community input prior to the plan being finalized. And that's what I'm concerned about.
This is the design build process that's contemplated by this agreement is somewhat different than the process that we would normally have before us, where the legislators would review the contracts. So we're not going to have that same contractual oversight that we would. But we do have the commitment from the state that they will work with the communities that are going to be benefiting from the water quality improvements, as well as hosting the pass-through of the sewage to the ultimate ocean outfall.
So what I'm hearing is that once we approve this, if in fact it is approved...
I'm sorry.
No, I understand. Am I correct in my understanding then that if in fact this is approved, the county does not have the ability to stop the process at that point.
The county has a number of reports that it has to deliver through the course of compliance with this agreement. And in delivering those reports and in hiring the people to do those reports will be, of course, made available to the legislature so that there can be input from the legislature on those reports. There would be nothing that would prevent the legislature from requesting and holding hearings on the information that the state is developing throughout its construction process.
I guess my concern is once the state takes over this process, which by this agreement they will be taking over the process, if the county has objections, we can't stop it. The state can do what they want to do at that point.
I don't exactly understand what you mean by stop it. We're here now because we have an obligation to control nitrogen. We would, if absent this cooperative agreement with the state, we would be in some sort of enforcement agreement with them to undertake it. We would have to sign on to this enforcement agreement and agree that we were going to control it. The input that you would have would be, after that process, would be more in the contracting phase and people that you were choosing to do the work. But here, one of the things that has to happen as part of this whole process is a demonstration of the water quality benefit to the Western Bays from what would happen through modeling if you diverted it to the effluent to the connection to the Cedar Creek outfall. So that's something that is, again, as I said before, that the public reporting of this information. What we're doing here, the state is taking on this design build obligation, and in doing so has pledged that they will agree to have public outreach and public information. As you'll see, there's a cooperative agreement here, and that cooperative agreement refers to entering into a more formal agreement with the state. I'm sure that the state would be willing to put into writing its commitment to hold those public outreach sessions, public hearing sessions, however you'd like to denominate them. But I don't see why they wouldn't, since they've already pledged to do so.
I appreciate the answer, and I think I have the answer to my question. I'm just not necessarily pleased with it. Again, my concern is that the community outreach and the community hearings and the input you solicit from the community be done before there's a commitment to the completion of the project on the part of the county.
Right now, that we have a commitment to control nitrogen. As to the project itself, again, that we're going to be having a more formal agreement with the state that outlines the mechanics of this design build work by the state and the cooperation between the state and the county. And we can in that agreement, craft some sort of obligation for public sessions.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. Gaylor.
Okay, so, good afternoon, thank you. Thank you for being here. So without the benefit of having the public's input into any of this, what would happen if we don't approve this today? This is not approved.
Then we would probably go back to a simple enforcement agreement.
Okay. In this cooperative agreement, does this resolution that's before us today address all water quality violations and discharge permit violations that may exist at Bay Park?
What this does is it resolves any outstanding permit violations, and as one in the appendix, which appendix? One of the appendices, you'll see listed all of the Bay Park improvements that are being done physically at that plant caused by the damage from the hurricane, and as well as a separate appendices that talks about all of the improvements that are being done at the plant itself to address nitrogen.
All right. So there in fact could be more violations than you're saying that exist and are not covered by this agreement?
No, there's no other violations that exist right now that aren't covered by this agreement.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, to make sure this resolves all violations that may exist. All right. As part of the funding, I know the state is committed to provide up to $78 million. But they termed it as using their best efforts to obtain that money. Assuming they don't, where does that money come from?
I can turn it over to the budget people to talk a little bit more about the actual mechanics of money, but I'll just tell you that when we are in violation, when there's a water quality violation, and we're the causal element of that water quality violation, we have to fix it. And the law doesn't take into account how much that costs us.
Okay, so then maybe the budget guy can tell us what's currently set aside for this, and what's the contingency plan if we have to come up with another $78 million. Because I appreciate the state indicating they're going to use their best effort to come up with $78 million, but the reality is they may not, and therefore the county has to, and I'd like to know where the county plans on coming up with $78 million.
There is some money in the Andy Persick, Office of Management and Budget. There is some money to fund part of this project in the capital budget. We did some capital budget amendments, I think, the last session to fund a portion of this. So I think the total project cost is about $350 million. I don't know what the split is between the state and the county, but there is a project in the capital budget that we amended a few weeks ago to fund this. So.
Okay, but that's not the question before you. The question is that the county's already committed to $48 million. The state said they're going to use their best efforts to try to find $79 million. I'm not so confident the state's going to come up with $79 million for Nassau County, so therefore, where do we come up with $79 million?
It's a capital budget item. We'd have to bond for it in order to fund it, so that's what would probably be the funding source for the outstanding balance if the state doesn't come through with the funds. So,
do we know when the state will identify to us whether they have the funds or not?
I don't know the answer to that one. It's part of their budgetary process too, and I don't know what the DEC is going to do, so.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Any other questions? Mr. Drucker?
Yeah, if we didn't have the cooperative...
Yep, sorry. If we didn't have the cooperative agreement, we were relegated to the enforcement obligation that you speak about. Could you just explain what the parameters of that enforcement agreement would be, and what our obligations would be under it?
Basically, good afternoon. Basically, our obligations under the enforcement agreement would be to build whatever control is necessary at the facility, or to utilize the diversion option to connect to the Cedar Creek outfall to accomplish the same result, which is the removal of the violating effluent from the water body. So basically what we would, if we went to the enforcement agreement as opposed to the cooperative agreement, what we would be giving up is the state's cooperative work on this project. You'd be giving up all of their willingness to do the design and the construction and all the benefits that flow with that, whether they be monetary or just simply in terms of their expertise and their ability to manage a project like this.
But they would definitely withdraw their financial support for the project.
They wouldn't withdraw the financial support for the projects that are ongoing in terms of the FEMA projects, in terms of the Sandy rebuilding. I don't know what that would do to their support of the nitrogen work.
Thank you.
Ms. Khan?
Rose, do you want to go first?
Ms. Walker?
Could you just repeat what you had said about Long Beach, how Long Beach ties into this?
Sure. The Long Beach plant has to control and manage its sewage, as do we, according to its permit. It had some outstanding permit violations. It too needs to address nitrogen. And the state and Long Beach, recognizing the incredible amount of money that was going to cost at such a small facility, approached it this way with a requirement that Long Beach construct a diversion to the Bay Park facility and then construct it and fund it and do it. This is not money that's going to be paid for by the county. It's a Long Beach obligation.
Okay, so Long Beach will connect to Bay Park, and then, and that's Long Beach.
I don't know whether or not under the agreement it connects directly to Bay Park or it connects to, at a point beyond the actual treatment of sewage at Bay Park to the diversion pipe to oh, you want to correct it? I'm going to let the engineer talk about that.
Good afternoon, Joe Davenport, Chief Sanitary Engineer, Department of Public Works. The Long Beach diversion, they would convert their plant to a pumping station. They would construct a force main, tie into the collection system that serves the Bay Park plant, the pipes, and that wastewater would then be treated at the Bay Park plant. And then with this diversion project, utilizing the Cedar Creek outfall, discharged out into the Atlantic Ocean. What's good about if we can accomplish that Long Beach component of the project is if you look back over a number of years, the county has shut down and converted its Inwood sewage treatment plant into a pump station back in 2000. We've done the same with the villages of Cedarhurst and Lawrence's, small inefficient plants. And now with Long Beach, and then if we divert the Bay Park effluent to the Cedar Creek outfall, we will have eliminated all of those wastewater discharges in the western bays there. It certainly would be a great accomplishment.
Okay. Thank you.
If I might, just, a couple of questions. Am I wrong? Didn't the governor a couple of weeks ago have a press conference with respect to this issue?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and at that point, didn't he indicate that the state was committing certain funding for this effort?
That's what he said. I was not there at the press conference, so I apologize. I don't have, I can't speak directly to what the governor said at that press conference, but he has indicated on numerous occasions the support that the state has for this project, that they recognize the regional importance of addressing nitrogen, and as Joe Davenport eloquently pointed out, you eliminate all of these smaller inefficient plants and their discharges into this water body that's relatively shallow, that feels the effects of nitrogen acutely. And so by doing this, and I think that is the impetus behind their design-build approach to this, that they perceive the regional importance of addressing water quality and have, on numerous occasions, pledged to support this project, both with their efforts and financially.
And assuming we did not vote in favor of this, we would still be under the obligation to address the problems that we have here, correct?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I've been doing sewage treatment plant consent orders since 1988, and I can tell you that I have absolutely no doubt that the state would force us to do this on our own, with our own money, and wherever it took.
Right, without the money of the state.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Curran.
That's quite all right, thank you very much. To your point, Legislator Muscarella, I was at the press conference and it was a very public and very enthusiastic commitment. So for whatever that's worth, it's up to you to decide. Quick question, who does the design-build procurement?
The state does that.
The state does that. Okay. And then to Legislator Rhodes' point about misinformation, I know in my community as well, there is misinformation out there that people are freaking out that raw sewage is going to be coming from other places. So I do think it would be helpful to have community input, whether they're input meetings or information meetings. And we can, wouldn't the Department of Public Works be able to organize these meetings on its own without the state? I mean, obviously in coordination with the state, but we don't necessarily need their permission to do this. And while this is being designed, there are questions that we will not be able to answer. But I have to imagine there are a lot of questions that we will be able to answer and perhaps stop misinformation from spreading so that it doesn't make the project a heavier lift than it already is.
You're correct, this information is always a detriment to any project, and so we would, of course, the state would, although they'd be designing and building it, we would be there working with our engineers and our consultants along the processes, and we can certainly have informational meetings at which the public is given all the opportunities they want to ask questions and to receive additional information.
That's good. I think that's very, very important for an ambitious project like this that has such great benefits. And we're in a position to say we're doing great things for the environment, for the water, for the economy, and this is something that we should be selling. And this I think, would be a good way for us to do that through real community engagement.
Ms. Birnbaum.
I'm concerned about the funding for this project, and I know the state has committed to grants, and the county will have to put in its share. But what about the city of Long Beach? Because you did say that the Long Beach's effluent will now be going to Cedar Creek as well.
Well, they're responsible for any construction work relative to converting their facility to a pump station, for paying for it to be connected to the Bay Park plant, and then they would be any work that they have to do to comply with that obligation that they have with the state to do that.
But does the county receive any benefit from having the city of Long Beach join with us?
Then they would be paid. They would pay into the county rate system for sewage service the way I do.
But so do we have an idea of how much that would amount to? Adding Long Beach to county?
We don't, but I mean, again, I think that having the Long Beach connection to this facility, which addresses a very urgent need in that area, only makes it more amenable to the state to fund. Because in my experience in the past with these sewage treatment plants, the state has money, and the state allocates that money where they perceive to be the greatest benefit and the greatest need. So when you're having something that addresses both the sewage treatment plant of Long Beach and rectifying the deficiencies at the sewage treatment plant in Long Beach, as well as rectifying the deficiencies at the sewage treatment plant in Bay Park, you become much more eligible for the funding pots that the state has available for these water quality benefit projects.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. Obviously, I think we all, and I appreciate the county executive-elect's comments. I think it's absolutely essential that we have public input, public information, and we do that as quickly as possible. Obviously, this is a proposal that was brought to us sort of at the 11th hour, which we haven't even had really the opportunity to be able to review as of yet. My intention is to approve this today and pass it through to the full legislature. However, in the intervening weeks before our meeting on the 18th, there are several questions that I really need to have answered, and I would also like to have in place, with the cooperation, obviously, of the incoming administration, a timetable as to when we're going to have those public information meetings, because I think getting that information out there sooner rather than later is vitally important.
Certainly, those are things that we can accomplish between now and the 18th.
Thank you.
Ms. Walker.
I'm sorry, and I feel it's bad that I keep going back to this, but the picture now, Long Beach will be paying for the conversion, as well as paying for the piping that goes to wherever they're connecting to.
To Bay Park.
To Bay Park, okay. And does Long Beach determine the route, or that's?
I don't know that they progressed at that point.
It would be a joint project between us and the city of Long Beach. They would be responsible for all of the capital costs for the project. Certainly, if they propose a route and they're installing the force main or the pipe along a county roadway, there are requirements in place, road opening permits, that they would have to come to us for our approval. So it's not as if they would be able to do work in a county roadway without our okay on that.
Okay.
And just quickly to wrap up, and regardless of the hearings that we might have, the state is required to go through an extensive environmental hearing process, the CEQA and all kinds of public hearings with respect to moving this process forward.
I haven't worked with the state yet on a design-build project. That this is, they haven't recognized, that hasn't been something that they have utilized before in the consent orders that I have worked on. So I can't speak to that, what they determine to be required in terms of this. In an enforcement action, there is an exemption to seeker for enforcement actions because it's already part of a permit requirement, so it's already required by law. So it's an enforcement action, but that doesn't mean that you can't have the type of public information sessions that you want. Seeker doesn't require public information centers. It requires that you fill out forms and you submit the forms and you follow up. And whether or not anybody ever bothers to read those forms from the public is a matter of whether or not you're interested. When you hold a public information session at which you've obligated yourself to present that information, you get the information disseminated to the public.
Okay, and regardless of anything that goes forward, this project, in order to go forward, would have to come to this legislature for bonding, is that correct?
Correct.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Curran.
Thank you. Sorry. Back again. Another reason why I think it's so important to engage the communities that this is going to affect is because we are also going to be constructing from Bay Park up to Sunrise Highway, from Sunrise Highway down into Cedar Creek, and those communities will be affected as well. So the more correct information we can get out there, I think the easier that part of the project will be as well, which, that's going to be the tricky part. The aqueduct or viaduct, I'm never sure which to call it, an aqueduct or a viaduct.
A pipe.
A pipe, okay, that's easier. The pipe seems easy, actually. It's the getting it to and from the pipe that's going to be the hard part. And that's where we really need the community support.
I think that you bring up an excellent point in the idea that we should have scheduled regular meetings, because seeker doesn't require scheduled regular meetings. It doesn't require scheduled meetings at all. And basically what it normally happens is on the eve of the decision-making process in which things have progressed down the line a good bit, and then people don't feel like they've had an input at a time in which they could have made the decision makers and the builders aware of what they should know. So if you have a regular scheduled project meetings, and when I worked for the city, at the Newtown Creek Sewage Treatment Plant projects and other projects, we had all sorts of involvement from the communities there, and we would have regular monthly meetings at which, that I would attend and other people would attend to discuss where we were going, and what needed to be known to the decision makers from the public, as well as what the public needed the decision makers needed to tell the public.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of moving this item? Oh, I'm sorry, public comment. Ms. Meredith. I apologize.
Good afternoon, Rita Maraday. Okay, where do I begin in like 3 minutes? I appreciate the comments from Legislator Curran and Legislator Rhodes. Trying to be bipartisan here. The public needs to be heard, particularly in the impacted communities, one in which I live in. And there is, I don't necessarily say it's misinformation, but Sunrise Highway just received a significant upgrade. So now we're going to be telling the residents that we're going to be digging up parts of that road. We don't know which parts. We don't know exactly how this pipe that's allegedly pristine, what the overall integrity of that is. We have issues already with our water, the nitrogen, the effluent aside. So there are significant concerns that we have here, and many of the residents particularly in the Baldwin Harbor area, who are still addressing, while paying their taxes, the fact that they can't live in their homes because of what already rolled in their house, care of Superstorm Sandy. We need to know what type of assurances and safeties are going to be in place to protect us against any leaks or breaks. I don't know if anybody read about the leaks with the Keystone Pipeline. As far as having some assurances with modern technology and construction, I really don't. I really would also like to know, when we talk about work quality violations, clearly this is not something that popped up all of a sudden. So it was already there when many of our politicians were having those nice little photo ops down at Bay Park after we spent all those multi-million dollars post-Sandy. So where is the tab for that, for the work that was already done? So I'm hoping, I don't know, this is probably whistling in the wind, but it's December and I'm optimistic, that we can have more discussion, more open discussion, and since most of this is already going to pass through anyway, I would like to endeavor to request that the public get more opportunities to be heard now, as opposed to having some type of environmental catastrophe and then everyone wants to run for cover after the fact, but the residents will still be the ones who are impacted and will have to pay for the privilege of having more sewer water disrupting our aquifers and things of that nature. So I'm pretty sure, call it a guess, but I've kind of been here a few times. I kind of know how this is going to run, and then the discussion will come up in the full edge, and once again, the outgoing majority, which will still be the majority, they'll vote a certain way, and then the other side will vote a certain way, and once again, the taxpayers are going to go into 2018 with another project that may or may not be beneficial for them. So just give us an opportunity to ask the questions, because I was getting ready to leave and I heard what was coming up here, and I think we could have had more public here to actually get this addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We look forward in the future to avoiding that, to affording that opportunity to provide public input into this project. Any other public comment? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving this item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is reported unanimously. Seeing no other business before us, motion by Mr. Rhodes to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Gaylor. All those in favor, please say aye. We are adjourned. Next up is health.
Call the health committee meeting together, Health and Social Services, and ask the clerk when he's ready if you would take the roll.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Walker. Health and Social Service Committee, Legislator Arnold Drucker. Here. Legislator Sheila Bino.
Here.
Ranking Member Delia DeRicci Whitten. Legislator James Kennedy. Here. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Vice Chairman C. William Gaylor III. Chairwoman Rosemarie Walker.
Here.
We have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you. 3 items today on the agenda are on the addendum, so I need a motion to suspend the rules made by Legislator Gaylor, seconded by Legislator Kennedy. All in favor of suspending the rules, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? There are 3 items on the agenda. They are all related to the health department, so I'm going to call them all together. That's agreeable to everyone. Clerk, item 470-17 is an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Department of Health. Clerk, item 471-17, an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Department of Health, and 472-17, an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Department of Health. Motion made by Legislator Kennedy, seconded by Legislator Schaefer.
Good afternoon, Mary Ellen Rain, Department of Health. Item 470-17 is a supplemental appropriation for the Bathing Beach Water Quality Monitoring Surveillance Notification Program in the amount of $55,355. This is funded through New York State Department of Health and is a mandated program. This program provides beach water quality monitoring at 56 beaches.
Any questions or comments from the legislators? I know this is something that over the summer we see a tremendous amount of the work you do, because constantly we are being notified as to what beaches are closed and how quickly they reopen and so on and so forth. So, any public comment?
Item 471-17 is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $490,000. This is for the Sexually Transmitted Disease Intervention Service Grant and is funded through New York State Department of Health.
Any questions or comments from the legislators? Any public comment?
Item 472-17 is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $8,652. This is for the Sexually Transmitted Disease Intervention Grant funded through New York State Department of Health, and it is an additional COLA award.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the legislators? Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of clerk item 470, 471, and 472-17 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, they will move on to finance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Soren. And if no other business before us, a motion to adjourn by Legislator Gaylord and seconded by Legislator Kennedy. All in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye. We are adjourned. And finance. Brian, we finance that? And Finance Committee is next.
Mike, can you call the roll?
Thank you, sir. Finance Committee. Legislator Ellen Birnbaum.
Here.
Thank you. Legislator Laura Curran.
Here.
Ranking Member Sheila Bino.
Here.
Thank you. Legislator Howard Copel. Legislator Rosemary Walker.
Here.
Vice Chairman Vincent Muscarella. Chairman Richard Nicolello.
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Item 448 of 2017 is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an amendment to a grant agreement between the County of Nassau acting on behalf of the District Attorney's Office and the Women's Opportunity Rehabilitation Center, Inc. Moved by Legislator Walker, seconded by Legislator Copel. Any questions on this item? As note for the record, went through committees before and asked that all committee minutes be incorporated by reference. Hearing no questions, any public comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, carries unanimously. Next item, 449, is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute a grant agreement between the County of Nassau, acting on behalf of the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Museums, and the Oyster Bay Historical Society. Moved by Legislator Walker, seconded by Legislator Muscarella.
Eileen Creve, Department of Parks. This is a grant with the Oyster Bay Historical Society in the amount of $9,200 to be funded through hotel motel tax for their educational program.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Any public comment? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, item carries unanimously. Item 450, a resolution providing for the issuance of a warrant directing the treasurer of the County of Nassau to pay to the supervisors of the several towns and to the treasurers of the several villages and cities within the county the sums as apportioned by the Nassau County Legislature based on a report filed by the county treasurer and the county clerk showing deposits from mortgage taxes for the period of 1 year commencing October 1st, 2016 through September 30th, 2017. Moved by Legislator Muscarella, seconded by Legislator Walker. Any questions on this item? Any public comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, item carries unanimously. Okay, next two items are 458 and 459. 458 is an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the police department. 459 is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute a cooperative agreement and license with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation in relation to a new environmental education and resiliency center. Moved by Legislator Coppell, seconded by Legislator Walker. Those two items before the committee. Any questions? They just went through public safety a few minutes ago. Any public comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay. I'm going to call the next several, 460, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, and 69 of 2017. These are resolutions to authorize the county assessor and or the county treasurer and or the receivers of taxes of the towns of Hempstead and Oyster Bay to remove ad valorem tax from certain real properties. Also, a resolution to authorize the county assessor and or the county treasurer and or the receivers of taxes of the towns of North Hempstead, and Oyster Bay to partially exempt assessments. Moved by Legislator Walker, seconded by Legislator Coppell. Items will be before the committee. Any questions? Any public comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Those items carry unanimously. Motion to suspend the rules. Legislator Coppell, seconded by Legislator Muscarella. All in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye. 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 All right, rules are suspended. First item on the addendum is item 216 of 2017. It's an ordinance amending an ordinance allowing termination pay to be paid in a single installment for certain officers and employees. Moved by Legislator Walker, seconded by Legislator Muscarella. I'd like to have a presentation on this.
Andy Persick, Office of Management and Budget. The item before you is giving employees the option of taking a single payment or a 3-pay, but it gives them the option to take a lump sum payment on the termination pay.
What is the currently without this item?
It's a 3-pay. Anything over $10,000 has to be paid out in 3 equal payments if they're owed what the balance of their outstanding termination pay is.
And the 3 equal payments would be over what time period?
Over 3 years, for when they separate service with the county.
So this would allow the option of them taking it a single installment, or what, in 2018?
Well, we're going to try and improve for it in 2017. That's the plan, and use funds, any additional surpluses in 2017 to fund whatever we owe with whatever employee separates, we're gonna try and pay with 2017 money.
Great.
So,
All right, any other questions on this item? Legislator Bynum?
Thank you. Chair, hi. So you said it would be over 3 installments. Normally, it's over 3 installments.
currently,
Now we're
that's what
gonna-
it is. It's a 3-pay is what it is. Anything over $10,000, if an employee's over more than $10,000, it would be paid out over 3 payments. So if you owe $10,000, you would get $3,333 over 3 years.
Okay. And so this is a shift in how this is normally paid out. And
Yes,
so
it
can
is.
you explain why we would be shifting?
Well, it was done previously when there was a transfer of administration, is what I know. So this is a practice that happened in 2009.
So I've asked that question as well because I wouldn't have been here earlier on when something like that would have
Nor was I,
occurred.
so.
Yeah, and so what I did learn though was that when this was utilized by the prior administration, that there was a sunset on the item. Therefore, people had only a certain period of time to go and come. This leaves it wide open.
Well, I think any changes would happen prior to the end of the year, so, you know what I mean? I think it would, depending upon when these people separated service, you know what I mean? It would probably be within the next month, I would imagine, so.
Maybe, maybe not.
Well, you know.
Maybe, maybe not. And so I'm a little concerned that this item does not include a sunset period. That's one of my observations. And then I'd like to know, if you don't know, then I'm going to ask Mr. Chalmers, what is the financial impact of this?
Well, it's going to depend how many people separate service. I mean, the total liability on the books now for all ordinance employees, which is what this covers, approximately $8 million. That would mean everybody of the 300 people that are ordinance would separate. We'd owe $8 million if this happened, but that's, I don't see that being a realistic, thing. So I think a portion of that, of the 300 people, some will be staying on. So what that number would be, I can't tell, until we find out who's here or not here. So.
Okay. And so, since we both have agreed we weren't here in the past, I believe Mr. Chalmers may have some history on this, so I'm going to ask that Mr. Chalmers come to the microphone and
Chalmers Budget Review.
Thank you, Mr. Chalmers. Mr. Chalmers, there's been a mention of about approximately $8 million financial impact in the event that we approve this item in this calendar year. Have you been able to do any projections on that, or?
No, what we did is we took a look at all the termination liability for all ordinance employees. Now, if you take all ordinance employees minus the DA, the district attorney, and 1 or 2 more departments, you end up with approximately 7.5 to 7.8 million. So the 8 million that was quoted or talked about before seemed to be accurate.
Okay, and so based on where we are in, a month, less than a month out from this year, and where do you see us ending the year in terms of finances?
Well, termination pay this year is going to be a little bit challenging because we just had the VSIP. And the VSIP, according to NYFA, is supposed to be paid out of the operating funds. So it may be a little bit challenging.
Okay. And the VSIP, what did we end with in total financial encumbrances based on the VSIP?
I believe the number was in the low 20 million, but I'll have to just double check and make sure.
Okay, so I think, I'm not sure, but I'm not aware of whether NYFA would be in support of any of this being financed through borrowing, and I'm not sure that we're going to have enough money to close out this year to be able to handle potentially $7.8 million.
That is if all those people, 200 plus people left. I am not sure how many people are going to be terminated, and we will have to pay this, but the potential liability could be up to $8 million. And I can't speak for NYFA in terms of how much they would allow us to borrow on that. I really don't have that answer.
Yeah, I would suspect since they wouldn't allow for the VSIP to be paid by way of borrowing, that they would be of like mind to say that they wouldn't allow for this particular item to be paid also.
Probably not.
Yeah, out of borrowing. So I'm thinking that this is, you know, is there somebody here from OMB or administration that could speak to exactly where you believe we are fiscally and that we do have money for this type of payout?
Well, because we're coming down to the end of the year, which is usually when we reconcile all our year-end adjustments and everything else, you know, we ended up finding some surpluses in certain areas. At this point, I don't know where we're going to be in December, but, you know, we're projecting a slight surplus in the monthly reports. But as at this point, unless we know what the number is, I can't give you the funding sources for it. But I don't think NYFA will allow us to borrow it.
So I don't even know why then this item made it onto an addendum, because we don't know how we're paying for it. And it actually not only exposes us to this type of financial liability in this year, based on the fact that there's no sunset, in the event that there are some separations in early part of 2018, where we already know that NYFA is going to impose cuts of up to $18 million, why would we agree to this? I think it's financially reckless, quite frankly, for us to even be considering this. I really don't think that this is financially prudent at this time, and I'm really seriously concerned about this approach. We don't know how we can pay for it, and we most certainly don't know how we could pay for it in 2018, because we're already backs up against the wall for 2018. So I actually would like to move for tabling this item until there's some kind of ability to illustrate how this could be paid for, and potentially an amendment to the item to include a sunset, so that we do not expose ourselves in 2018 when we already know that financially we're in a tough spot.
There's motion to table. Is there a second? Seconded. All in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Okay.
Item's not tabled.
So,
Mr. Chalmers?
I'm not quite sure I was done, but
Well, you
you
made a
go ahead
motion.
and then
I thought you
that's
wanted- you
okay.
made a
That's
motion to
okay.
table.
That's fine. I'll jump back in.
Yeah, everyone gets a chance. I wanted to make sure I understood something that you said. That now the number of people eligible includes people in the DA's office. Is that what you said?
In total, there's about 550 ordinance employees, which includes 216 employees in the DA's office, 15 in the Board of Election, and I believe for the purposes of registration, they took out about 63 employees out of the mix also for the legislature. That would leave us with about 255 employees.
And then and what is the exposure?
The total exposure for everybody, including DA, Board of Election.
No. I mean, no. I
8 million. It's about approximately 7.8 million to 8 million.
Okay. I don't think that you're going to see a mass exodus out of the DA's office of the Board of Elections,
No.
well, the legislature for that matter.
That 7.8 to 8 million is exclusive. It does not include the DA.
Oh, it doesn't, okay.
No.
That's what, okay, thank you. So, currently, this exposure would be spread over 3 years, is that correct?
Yes.
So they pay out in the current year or in 2018 and 19 and 20.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. This question for Legislative Bynum, you keep talking about a sunset. What do you have in mind?
So it's my understanding that the prior administration allowed for this same type of initiative. However, everyone had to leave by December 31st, 2017, so that there was no exposure into the next year. But my problem with this item is twofold. Number one, we're exposing ourselves in 2018. Number two, and which I actually think is probably more important, is that the administration can't illustrate how they would even pay for anything in 2017. They've said it on the record, that they're at a point of trying to reconcile and find where they may be able to locate some surplus to pay for it. They have not identified a surplus to pay for it. So there's two issues that really, to me, are troubling with this item. And if they could illustrate how they could pay for it and add a sunset, I probably could wrap my mind around it. But with the lack of both of those two things being in place, it would be irresponsible for the Finance Committee to approve something like that.
Well, I think this goes to the full legislature after this. In 2 weeks, we have an opportunity at that point, if we decide that the administration has not fully justified how it's going to pay for it, to stop it at that point. So I'd rather give them 2 weeks to tell us where the money's coming from, or make any changes. Mr. Persick, you have a point?
I just want a couple of points I want to make. Number one is we're projecting a $1.5 million surplus, our current report, so part of the funding could come from that. But as we get closer to year end, there are a lot of stuff that occurs that, that we do find funding sources. The second thing I want to correct myself, it's 5,000, not 10,000, that the payout comes out on. Anything greater than 5,000 is what the free pay comes into. The third thing I want to make the point is, no matter what, if we terminate all these people in 2018, we'd still have a $2.5 million liability in 18 if people decided to separate service, because that's contractually what we're bound to do. You know what I mean? If of the 200 people that Mr. Chalmers was referring to, if they left in 2018, we still have to pay that no matter what, because that's part of the contract. So just to make sure that we all understand, that's what really would happen. So
that point's not lost on me.
Okay.
Okay.
We still have to fund it. My point is we still have to fund it sometime in 2018.
That point is absolutely not lost on me. Okay. What's lost on me is why we would allow for someone to separate in 2018 and then get the total lump sum of a payout in 2018. We're potentially exposing ourselves to greater risk in 2018 in the event that of the 255 employees, that maybe 150 don't go until 2018. So there's an exposure. That's the point that I'm making, okay? I definitely understand that this was going to have some exposure over the 3-year period, but we're not protecting ourselves. We're not in any way minimizing the exposure in 2018 by allowing for this not to have a sunset for December 31st, 2007.
And I understand completely what you're saying, but
Thank you.
We've strived all the time to find savings and everything else and fund things, so that's what we continue to work on and look at the budget.
Yeah, but I don't, this is in the middle of looking at an $18 million looming cut for out of next year's budget, and where we are today, and today's budget, with you telling me that we have a $1.5 million surplus. A $1.5 million surplus is a long way away from $8 million.
Legislator Legislator Curran, Legislator Birnbaum, then Legislator Coppell.
Thank you. I would echo what Legislator Bino says. I mean, NYFA is asking the current administration to cut $19 million. We don't know what that's going to be yet, but I'm sure we all have an idea of the things that will be cut. And this is just making next year much more difficult for all of us. So I wasn't here in 2009. I know when an administration comes in, we do it, then they do it, and back and forth. But I just think this is fiscally irresponsible. I'd also be very curious to know what NYFA has to say about this. And I have to tell you, this is very, very concerning to me, and I will not vote for it.
Legislator Birnbaum.
I agree. I find, as a member of the Finance Committee, that we should be looking for ways to save money and to all of a sudden now pay out this amount when we're looking to save in so many areas. And I'm just fearful that next we're going to be asked to make cuts to services such as the bus, to Nice Bus. We're going to be asked to reduce our payments to youth services, to any discretionary program, when we can leave this in place the way it's been in 3 payments rather than all of a sudden do one lump sum payments. I think it's similar to what we heard the discussion about before with the judicial hearing officers. Why do a contract for 3 years when we could do one? This is just the opposite. Why do one lump sum payment when we could spread it out? I think that would be financially wise, prudent. Thank you.
Just a few questions, please. If these separations happen in 18, what would be the total potential liability?
It'll be the same, it's 7.8 million, that's what it
So
was.
7.8 million. Now, the question that I have
Well,
is,
remember, divide that by 3 though.
but that, and under GAAP, would that be an accrued liability in 18 in any case?
Yes.
So therefore, the full 7.8 would hit the budget in 18 regardless of when the actual cash was paid out?
No, the cash would be paid out, it would be a budgetary item over 3 pay is what it would be. The liability would be booked in total.
Okay, but in other words, what I'm asking then is, and again, the NIFA rules, the NIFA application of GAAP, the full 7.8 would not hit the budget if we did it under current rules?
The current rules is the term pays get paid out over 3 pays, so we budget for the 3
So it's actually on a cash basis?
It's on a cash basis in the budget, that's the way the budget is done. We do it at 3 pays. We have terminations now that are.
I was asking about the budget rules. That's it.
That's what I'm saying. The budget rules is we do termination leave based on a 3 pay now. So we budget based on 3 payments out. Like if somebody separates in 2017, we will budget in 18 and 19 for their termination pay.
Okay.
For their third.
And this is now, it is not paid with interest.
No, there's no interest on that, no.
So it's kind of free borrowing right now?
It's not pre-borrowing, we're paying with budgetary dollars is what
Well,
we're
what I
paying.
mean is it's on a cash basis.
It's on a cash basis,
It's
that's
free-
the way
it's free-
termination.
It's free borrowing essentially for 2 years of a large sum amount for the.
We have to accommodate it in future year budgets, like when we do the multi-year
I
plan. we have to
understand, but if you're paying it later, you're deferring the obligation without paying interest.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any benefit to the county?
Cash
in
flow
doing this?
reasons, I mean, clearly it's a cash flow reason.
No, I'm asking, the change that you propose, does that have any benefit to the county?
Regardless.
I
it's still-
understand the benefit to the employees. Is there any benefit to the county?
Not per se, we're still gonna have to pay them out in future years, so the
So
liability will still be there.
this is just basically doing nice things for these separating employees. That's what this is.
I can only,
Is there any other motive for doing this?
I don't have the answer to that. All I know is that no matter what we do here as far as the liability, it's still gonna be there, so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just, I just don't want to ask this question. If we put a sunset in December 31st, so that if you basically would limit whatever financial impact would be the 2017 budget, correct?
Correct, it would be, we would accrue for it in 2017 and have to pay for it with 2017 funds.
Isn't that rather than having a negative impact on 2018's budget, wouldn't it have a positive impact on 18's budget? Because
then you wouldn't have determination, you'd have turnover savings too from the people that weren't sitting in chairs.
So the 2018 budget, if you did that, sunset it in 2017, you wouldn't have the potential for $2 to $3 million in an installment payment in 18.
Correct.
Okay. The general point I wanted to make is that, there's a reference to a cut that NIFA is making of $19 million. I mean, that Newsday story was inaccurate to the extent that $15 million of that cut was an OTPS, or 15 of the 17 plus was an OTPS, was something that we proposed. So it wasn't NIFA jumping in and saying, well, we're going to cut this amount. I mean, basically they are acting like a political organization. The Democrats and Republicans in this legislature proposed cutting 15 million OTPS. And above and beyond that, NIFA ordered additional cuts, but basically to say, well, they cut 19 million. That's what we proposed that they do. Anyway, anyone else?
Yeah,
Sure. Legislator Bergman?
Where did this ordinance come from? Who proposed it?
County Executive's Office.
When, do you know when?
I think it was proposed in May.
Good. Now let's, must go.
If I could just ask Maurice the same question. Is there any budgetary benefit to doing this ordinance?
Maurice Chalmers, OLB. I mean, in terms of 2017, it will provide the employees that could possibly be out of a job a lump sum payment. So instead of waiting for 2018, when you get paid 18, 19, and 20, you get it one shot.
Well, I understand for them, but what about for the county?
I don't think that there is a financial benefit to the county.
Okay, thank you.
Let me follow that up. Again, same question I have for you. If we sunset this into 2017, and the monies had to be paid out, they accrued in 2017, had to be paid out of the 2017 budget, you are thereby avoiding a potential $2 million, $3 million hit in the 2018 budget. So there's that benefit, correct?
Yes, I would have to deal with that, yes. And if you pay everything in 2017, then whatever you had budgeted for 2018 in terms of separation pay, you could have an uptick. You could be better off.
Okay. Any other questions? No. It's our intention, I believe, to move this along, and then we have obviously some questions that have to be answered to the administration as to how they would fund this thing. You have additional questions or comments?
Yes. It wouldn't, again, the funding of it is part of the way. The other piece is making sure that the liabilities remain only in 2017.
Right. That's
so that we can reap the benefit, right? Of taking care of the debt now and not having it to deal with it down the road.
Right.
Okay, so it can't just be that one.
No, you're right. It's the two parts. Okay. Legislator Carr?
Thank you, Chair. So it's my understanding that whatever happens in committees today, this conversation is not over?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely not. Any other questions? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay, passes by a vote of 4-3. Items 470, 71, 72 are ordinances supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Department of Health. Moved by Legislator Walker, seconded by Legislator Muscarella. The items before the committee. Any questions or comments? Any public comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those items carry unanimously. Item 473 of 2017 is a resolution to authorize the transfer of appropriations heretofore made within the budget for the year 2017. Moved by Legislator Walker, seconded by Legislator Copel. We just have to find out what this is about.
Good afternoon, Mary Ellen Lorraine, Department of Health. This is a board transfer in the amount of $62,318. They are all New York State Department of Health grant-funded programs, and it's just to maximize grant reimbursement.
Thank you. Any questions? Public comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. 475 and 476 are both resolutions to authorize the county executive to execute grant agreements between the county acting on behalf of the Department of Parks and the Nassau County Firefighters Museum and Education Center, as well as the Delancey Floyd Jones Free Library. Moved by Legislator Muscarella, seconded by Legislator Copel. Those two items are before the committee. Any questions on these two? Any public comments?
Yeah, good afternoon. Press the red button. Just press the red button. I'm sorry. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, Heidi Saft, Vice President, No String Garden Civic Association in Uniondale. I have questions about the grant for the Nassau County Firefighters Museum and Education Center. How much is the grant, first of all? Do you know?
It is a $100,000 grant.
I see. And what is it to be used for?
Do We have somebody, yes, we have Ms. Creed here from Parks. She can answer that question for you.
Eileen Creed, Department of Parks. This is used for special needs programming at the Firefighters Museum. They did not get a grant in 16, but this is their 17th grant to be used in 2018. They use it to supplement their programming for special needs students.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that what was just stated is admirable, but what I do not find admirable is that the Nassau County Firefighters Museum states that they're in Garden City, but they are in fact located in Uniondale. And if you go into their website, you also see that they state that they're supported by the Uniondale Fire Department, but they refuse to acknowledge the fact that they're located in Uniondale, which I find really offensive. Many of you may know that there was a big fight about the naming or attempt to name a part of Uniondale East Garden City. And there were certain organizations, including the Fire Museum, that refused to acknowledge the fact that they are in fact located in Uniondale. That's wrong, and I really don't think grants should be provided unless not-for-profits state where they're located accurately, especially being that this is for their education center. I find that to be really questionable, and I'm very hopeful in the new year that before you give out grants of $100,000 or $1 million or $1,000, that you make sure the organization identifies its address correctly. Like I said, if you look on their website, it states that they're supported by the Uniondale Fire Department, and that if you want to get there, you have to put Uniondale in, but no, they're not in Uniondale, they're in Garden City. Maybe you wonder why I find this so annoying. It's because it's just not right. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that I noticed in going through all of these that our Uniondale Avenue streetscaping project is still not on the list. And what I'm wondering is if it's possible to add it to the record?
No, not at this time.
And why is that?
The agenda has been set. There's no item before us, so.
So you don't feel that it's important enough to include, even though we've been waiting more than 2 years, and so is the contractor to get the work started? Is that what you're saying?
There's many important things going on in the county, but everything is not necessarily on this agenda, so.
Yeah, I just would like to finish up. I have 10 seconds. I want to read something by Dr. John Rizzo, the Long Island Association chief economist, from the Business Fact Book. He said, it's important to target investment at lower income neighborhoods to reduce these disparities. Thank you.
All right. Any other public comment? Let's set a item.
I have to say that I agree in so much that there is no East Garden City, it's Uniondale. And if there was an attempt to rename that area, I happen to represent the area that wants to be East Garden City, but in fact it's Uniondale. And Congresswoman Rice worked with the Census Bureau to make sure that it was repealed and that in fact it is going to be then included back into Uniondale. And I do think that county-supported agencies and county government should be reflecting their locations as Uniondale. And I think that that's something that we should hold those entities accountable to do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other other comments or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the item, I'm sorry, was it unanimous or no?
Yes.
Okay. The items carried unanimously. Item 479, 2017 is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an administrative consent agreement and cooperative agreement with the State of New York Department of environmental conservation in relation to the Bay Park diversion project and additional work. Moved by legislator Muscarella, seconded by legislator Walker. This just had extensive discussion in the Public Works Committee, but legislators here are free to ask any questions they'd like also. I understand there's many questions that will be also vetted at the full legislature on the 18th. Any legislators have any questions?
We're going to include the earlier.
Yes, we'll incorporate the testimony by others. Any public comment on this item at this time? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the item carries unanimously. Motion to adjourn by legislator Walker, seconded by legislator Coppell. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, we're in adjournment. It's rules again next.
It starts on with ending 260. Hi, Frank. Well, every now and then this time. You're crashing.
But don't go. I figured this time of year, maybe people would start with the holiday stuff, and there'd be like cookie trays back there or something. I already made my comment. Thank you. Now you're approaching. No, this is awesome.